You can set your phone to silent and head to the gym. In ordinary life, silence means peace. In the Russian Special Forces, silence means your ears are hunting for the crackle of the radio, footsteps in the corridor, and the commander's tone through the wall. You automatically reach for a bottle of water after a run. Here, water appears not when you want it, but when you are allowed to have it. Why do the habits of a free person in peacetime suddenly turn into risks the moment you strap on a ballistic vest and tighten your bootlaces? We are in Russian reality, between the North Caucasus and the central regions, in the period between 2008 and 2016, on the Gregorian calendar. The protagonist is not a poster hero, but a regular contract operative in a special purpose unit. He runs, makes mistakes, learns, takes responsibility. The technology exists: radios, thermal imagers, body armor, cameras, drones. But gear does not cancel fatigue or fear, it merely translates them into orders and protocols. Here, a normal day is not when things are easy, but when the hard things get done on time without endangering people who should not be endangered. Imagine a daily rhythm that doesn't match a single one of your habits. You want to know when you'll wake up and when you'll sleep, but here wake up is not an alarm clock, it's a voice on the radio. Today is a forced march, tomorrow a drill for entering stairwells and doors, the day after tomorrow a training evacuation that nobody will cancel because you are tired. Your body tries to bargain, give me another hour of sleep, give me coffee, and the schedule answers, formation in a few minutes. Can you get real rest if the night is an alert and the day is a shooting range? You can, but only in snatches, acknowledging the authority of someone else's timer. And something strange happens fast. You start eating, standing up, speaking in a whisper, holding several plans in your head at once. Not for the pretty word discipline, but because otherwise the team falls out of sync, and that is no longer about inconvenience, that is about risk. From the first day they explain a simple, hard logic. You are part of a mechanism, and your personal pace interests no one. Do you hear someone wheezing in their sleep through the wall? Then put your heels down so the floorboards do not creak. Do you see a bunkmate's locker left open? Close it quietly. Not because you're kind, because in a few hours that person will be covering your back on a stairwell. Everything that looks like a formality is, in truth, how chaos gets subdued. A duty shift is not only about being ready to bolt into the dark, it is about living at half-cock. You neither relax completely nor tense up to cramps, because extremes burn you out. The most useful muscle is not your biceps, but your attention switch. Click. And you are all ears on the radio net. Click. And you listen to your own breathing to tell whether it is too fast for the task at hand. In civilian life, you can indulge the luxury of endless scrolling. Here, every unnecessary minute of distraction turns into failure in small things. You forget to check a valve, your gloves soak through, you don't recharge a battery, the camera becomes a piece of glass. You fail to tighten a strap. On the first flight of stairs, your toe catches a step and you slam into the railing. Food and water stop being a matter of taste. A canteen is not a souvenir, it is insurance against stupidity. Dehydration makes the sight picture float and your head heavy. 2 liters is not a fitness app number, but a line beyond which headaches and attention lapses begin. Water does not always come from a clean tap, which means you carry tablets, a filter, and the habit of not drinking the first thing you find. A hot lunch is a holiday, but if it means you drop out of rhythm, you choose a cold tin and lukewarm water from a plastic bottle. Here the taste for life is measured not in spices and sauces, but in how quickly you can put your gloves back on after eating. It is not a pose, it is a habit on which other people's ligaments and your knees depend. In one pocket you have a tourniquet, in the other, gloves. You check them automatically like a driver glancing at the mirror at a stoplight. What if I never need them? The peaceful voice in your head asks. The answer is simple. Wonderful if you never need them. But if you do, there will be no time to explain to yourself why you left them in your locker. You carry nothing unnecessary, and still you seem overloaded. Every item works for you only when you remember where it lies, how to pull it, how to stow it again. All the gear around you is a little economy, consumables, maintenance rituals, replacement schedules. The weapon is a separate subject. It is not loved, as movies romanticize. It is respected. A clean bolt is not aesthetics. It is a guarantee that the mechanism will not argue with your intention at the one moment when argument is fatal. Barracks mean a bed and silence, you think, until you find yourself in a room where every bunk is not your island, but a temporary airlock. A bed is only a rectangle of time in which you must wash, dry your kit, change your shirt, and not wake those who march out in an hour. When it is minus 30 degrees Celsius outside, night is not romantic. It is a test of how quickly you can warm up without letting a damp collar turn into an icy shackle. In summer, 40 degrees Celsius turns a ballistic vest into an oven. Everything you drink ends up in the lining. While the world argues about brands of air conditioners, you learn to breathe correctly, to divide your path into stretches of shade, and not to be afraid of your own salt on your face. In the shoulder seasons, temperature teams up with damp, a quiet enemy that does not hurt so much as it steals your steadiness. No typical day here survives more than a couple of weeks. Often you wake already in the position of late, even if the clock says otherwise. Neither muscle memory at the wash basin nor the knack of lacing boots without looking will save you from that paradox. Something else will: trust. Not the sort of trust you see on posters, but the housekeeping kind, the kind that grows when people have worked side by side in cramped spaces. You know the man on your left will check his channel first and not dive into his phone. He knows you will not try to brew tea in a hot zone just because you are tired. This trust is not given for good looks. It is cultivated through dozens of small deliveries. You showed up on time, said exactly what was needed, handed over the bag without questions, and you can destroy it with a single move. Failed a step where you were supposed to, and everyone watches the shared geometry fall apart. Then comes the least visible part of the job: paper and protocol. To an outsider, special forces look like sprint and flash. In reality, they are prepared endurance in a dense routine. Page after page ties down who did what, who made which decision, who passed responsibility to whom. No fine phrasing, dates, names, times. Those who enter this stream for the first time get angry. Why write the obvious? Because when the question who and why hangs in the air, neither your voice nor your years of service persuade anyone. What persuades are careful lines that speak for you when you are silent or spent. The predictability of the law is not a millstone. It is insurance against memory's habit of embellishing the past. Then it is back to the body. It pays regularly and without installments. Your back remembers every march with a rifle, your knees every stairwell, your hands every grappling hook you've driven into a high-rise facade. Can you just push through and keep running? Of course. And that very decision returns as a stabbing pain a week later at the exact second you need to drag a teammate by his harness. In a place like this, the medic is not someone who hands out a pill. He watches how you mount your weapon and says, "Enough," even when you are aching to say, "Let me go." A pulse spiking to 180 beats per minute over a short sprint is not a badge of honor. It is a reminder that a fogged brain is generous with mistakes. The bravest thing is not feeling no pain, but recognizing in time, if I pretend nothing is wrong now, tomorrow I put everyone at risk. Paradoxically, duty in special operations is not until the last drop, but until the moment my decisions become more dangerous than the task. There is another invisible load: waiting. No one films the people who sit for 4 hours in a van in a dead-end yard, staring through fogged glass. No one cares how you check the block map for the 5th time only because it keeps your anxiety within boundaries. But it is waiting that retrains your nervous system. You learn to detect the first tremors in yourself and beat them to the punch with water, breathing, the banal stand up, squat, sit down. You understand why idle chatter is a luxury. It plucks you out of the process like a light hand on your collar. And you choose quiet, not because it looks cooler, but because in silence you hear better exactly where a soul scuffs on a step. There is another layer, home. It is rarely mentioned, but it drives a lot. In ordinary life, you can postpone conflict with loved ones until evening. Here, evening is an abstraction. The promise, "I'll be back by 8," turns into, "unless they pull me off." You may physically miss the kindergarten recital, the doctor's appointment, the conversation that cannot be postponed. People around you get tired of your unpredictability. You get tired of their reproaches. It is no one's fault. It is the price of the choice. By the third month, you learn to say less, promise less, do more. Not for show, for the simple reason that home must not collapse, because home is why you are doing this at all. Nature is the third participant, and it never signs off on plans. A wind of 20 meters per second turns a drone from a tool into an expensive white bird, and you into a speck being blown off a ledge. Rain is not a movie shot. It is a wet stock and water in the radio. Snow is not a postcard. It is a crust on your straps that leaves your shoulders aching. In the city, weather gets a silent ally. Dust, tar, exhaust settling in your lungs and making your head woolly at the exact moment a shadow twitches on the horizon. Nature does not care how long your shift lasts. It will not cancel an order or extend a pause. Your job is not to defeat it, but to fit yourself to it. Choose routes along the edge of shade. Dry socks in moving air, not on a radiator where they'll hold scent. Do not gulp anything ice cold when you are overheated. Do not try to be a hero on descents where a loose stone turns a person into a sled. The city is its own ordeal. Apartments are not just people and furniture. They are breaker boxes where a stray spark has no sense of humor. They are flimsy locks that are easy to confuse with sturdy ones, followed by long hours remedying the consequences. They are stairwells where each landing has its own acoustics, and your foot must know which step time has bitten away. Danger does not shout here, it whispers. You learn to hear that whisper. Run a finger along a railing and feel where the dust lies thicker. No one has passed here lately. Breathe easier. Notice a fresh screw hole in a door trim. Someone changed a lock. Prepare for an extra click. This is not detective romance. It is craft. Out in the hills, the language is different. Mountain trails dislike loud people. They are generous with tests. A knifed ridge where the wind turns you into a pennant. A rock spill where the only safe step is the one you conceived, not with your foot, but with your head, before the soul ever touched. A good team on a route is not a column, but an organism. The lead does not grandstand, the tail does not dawdle, the center listens to both. And again, the axiom, rhythm is stronger than motivation. You may itch to surge ahead. You do not. You may want to sit on a stump and get your breath back. Not now. There is a cadence hammered out by experience, calibrated to the slowest, so the strong do not have to carry two people. Money. It seems you have a paycheck, already easier. But endurance keeps its own budget, and you cannot cover it with a single line on the payroll. They issue you a uniform, and life scribbles its own costs, spare gloves, a new holster, a lamp that suddenly starts to flicker, chargers that vanish on deployments, the road home that drains both your tank and your patience. You cling to simple, reliable things because in this world, cheap means expensive for your body. A solid pair of combat boots for 3,000 rubles, roughly the cost of a day's bread ration in 2015, is not a luxury. It is a chance your ankle will survive yet another descent on wet stairs. You save not only money, you save footsteps, words, nerves. And if you do not cultivate the habit of putting a little aside for an ordinary hard day. One day that ordinary hard day will eat everything. There is another trap set by peacetime culture, the cult of charisma. We are taught to love the flashy, the person who laughs loudest, grabs the mic with confidence, proclaims, "I know how." In a special unit, flash is noise that keeps others from hearing. The traits that keep the machine running are the ones that impress no one over beers. Patience, precision, softness, on small things paired with steel, on principles. A paradox? To an outsider, yes. To the job, normal. Learning to stay quiet when you want to shine, asking once more when you fear looking slow, saying, "not sure," when everyone wants to hear "ready." Those are muscles too. Without them, no door opens. A word about mistakes. In everyday life, we treat them as steps on the way up. If it fails, try again. In special operations, the price is different. Often, it is not about you. It is about the one at your shoulder or the person behind that wall. That is why this work breeds what can look like coldness from the outside, a courteous "no" that is more skillful than a fiery "yes." Unwillingness to wager with other people's lives is not cowardice. It is professionalism. Inside, it hurts. Everyone has a story of, "if I had pushed harder, we would have nailed it on the first go." Everyone also has the second half of that story, and if it had gone wrong, who would be on the stretcher? No answer is free. Every movement spends someone's strength. And back to the law. No one loves paperwork until it becomes a shield. When you work on the border between risk and necessity, every "why this way" must have an answer, not an excuse, a rationale. You took a step because of reasons A and B. You used force because there was a risk. The alternative was worse. You held back because you read the environment and saw the price of intervention exceeding the likely good. These lines of thought are not born in an office. They are trained in cold and heat, on the range and in corridors, in conversations with a lawyer, and in silent bargaining with yourself. Over time, you see that hard and soft are not opposites, but tools you select based on which surrounding things are alive rather than cardboard. Then it gets even more down to earth. Hygiene, the thing no one talks about. Damp and dirt are not aesthetic quibbles. They are scent that gives you away, friction that raises blisters, little inflammations that ruin sleep and erode patience. People who can work for a long time look like careful carpenters. They carry cloth, tape, scissors, a sliver of soap. They spend an extra 3 minutes wringing socks or rinsing a buckle and win hours during which other people are already hurting. Nothing heroic, yet without this, heroism turns into a spasm, brief, loud, useless. And what about the inner fire, so beloved in motivational speeches? It exists. It is dangerous. Hot resolve is wonderful fuel for a start and terrible fuel for a long haul. You have to mix it into the bland porridge of regularity in small portions. People who burn out are not the weak ones, but those who try to cram into a month what this profession spreads over years. The most valuable teammate is often not the fastest or slickest. It is the one who, after falling in the mud, gets up and keeps going as if nothing special happened. He delivers no speeches. He just does the next thing right. Which brings us back to your first question. Why do peaceful people's habits become risks in a special unit? The answer is not that operators are special people breathing special air. It rests on 3 simple but stubborn facts. First, the environment is stronger than intentions. The climate, the city, the terrain, the surrounding machinery, none of it is invested in your comfort. Minus 30 degrees Celsius and a wind of 20 meters per second do not respond to persuasion. If you build your day like an ordinary city dweller, the environment will explain in a matter of minutes that you are only one factor, and not the decisive one. Nature is not good or evil. It simply is. In that givenness, the loudest private vows drown. Second, rhythm is stronger than motivation. The teams must relentlessly stops your want to and don't want to. People here do not live on surges of enthusiasm, but on sequence: alert, assembly, movement, waiting, action, report. You can be exhausted, inspired, angry, amused. The schedule does not care. It does not ask your consent. It asks your readiness. If you cannot turn your mood into background noise, you will always be late, not by minutes on a dial, but by states of mind. Third, rules are stronger than impulse. In ordinary life, impulses are often forgiven. You do not reply. You text later. You do not show. You apologize. Here, an unchecked impulse risks the lives of those beside you and those you are sworn to protect. Rules do not strangle freedom. They create the corridor you can walk down and back alive. Anyone who has ever been in a place where seconds stretch like rubber knows, without agreed-upon signals and words, people start speaking different languages. The shared language here is life. What do we undervalue today? The banal things that feel like background. Reliable plumbing where water is clean by default. Legal predictability where paperwork is not empty ritual, but a trail that lets investigators find weak spots and fix errors later. Access to medicine where a spinal twinge is a reason to make an appointment, not a signal to shut up and endure. A schedule that does not bounce around other people's decisions, but serves your life. None of this is merely a convenience of the age. It is the very safety net that a special unit often lacks at the critical moment. And the next time you open a tap just because you are thirsty, pause for a second. What cost you nothing costs someone else dearly. Would you last a day like this? Perhaps, yes. If you'd accepted in advance a simple logic, here the survivor is not the one who talks the loudest about bravery, but the one who respects the environment, submits to the cadence, and refuses to haggle with the rules. And even then, it would be hard. In this work, easy and right rarely inhabit the same sentence, and quiet and on time is a summit you must climb anew each day. You can train your body, study procedures, learn to breathe so your heart has it easier. But if you do not accept the three sources of pressure, the environment, the rhythm, the rules, they will accept you anyway, only more harshly. There is a fourth element people avoid naming because it sounds too soft for a hard profession: the memory of others. People do not return the same as before, not because they have seen the unbearable, but because they have lived too long cheek by jowl, where I dissolves into we. Try going to a supermarket afterward, where no one depends on anyone, where you can spend half an hour choosing between two cans of food. Unbearable? At first, yes. Then you learn the reverse skill, to be a person who can just stand at a shelf and not hurry anywhere. That, too, is a skill. It is also about respecting a rule, only now the rule of ordinary life. So when someone asks you again, what is the point of all this? Try not to explain. Try to look instead at how easily and quietly water runs from the tap, how smoothly the elevator works, how predictably the bus arrives. Try to see how much invisible effort holds that simplicity together. Then it becomes clearer why someone chooses each day to live where there is no schedule for oneself, where the weather is the boss, the protocol is the map, and home is the place you return to, not to boast, but to lie down in silence and finally hear real quiet. It is not the absence of sound, it is the absence of alarm. It costs more than any money. And it may be the thing we most underestimate.